Alright, you little mathematicians, today we're going to learn about the distributive property. This is just an introduction. We'll continue talking about this even after we start talking about algebra and start using variables, but this is the first time we'll see it this year. So the distributive property says that AB plus AC equals A times B plus C. One thing that's just important to remember right now, when we're dealing with algebra and things like that, when variables are just put next to each other, or when you just put a number right next to a variable, that means we're multiplying. So this says A times B plus A times C equals A times the whole quantity of B plus C. That sounds very abstract and strange, so let's see it with an example. Okay. 6 times 2 plus 6 times 5 equals 6 times 2 plus 5. That's what the distributive property says. And we can see this is true because 6 times 2, that's like a way of saying 2 groups of 6. And here is 5 groups of 6. So if we're adding 2 groups of 6 and 5 groups of 6, that should be the same as 7 groups of 6. And that's what the distributive property tells us. We can do 2 plus 5 groups of 6, which of course is just 7 groups of 6. 6 times 7. So that's what the distributive property tells us. We're going to look at another example now, and we'll work it all the way from the beginning. Okay, using the distributive property is sometimes called factoring out when you're using it in one direction. So we're going to consider the expression 12 plus 28. Can we factor out the greatest common factor? We want to find the greatest common factor of 12 and 28 and then factor it out. I know this is new language, so just follow along. I think you can follow my logic as I do this problem. First of all, we need to notice that the greatest common factor of 12 and 28 is 4. 4 is the biggest number that can be that is a factor of 12 and 28 that you can divide 12 and 28 by. So we're going to rewrite those. Instead of 12, we'll write 4 times 3. And instead of 28, we'll write 4 times 7. We're still adding those together. So this problem here is just another sort of weirder way of writing this problem here, right? 12 plus 28, well, I still have 12 plus 28. The order of operations says I would do the parentheses first, so 4 times 3, that would be 12. 4 times 7 would be 28, and then I'd be adding them. So this is another way of writing 12 plus 28. Now we want to think about, again, this is saying 3 groups of 4, and this is saying 7 groups of 4. If I have 3 groups of 4 here and 7 groups of 4 here, and I'm adding them together, that will give me 10 groups of 4. The way we can first write that is by saying we have 4 times 3 plus 7 groups. And of course that equals 4 times 10. We do in the parentheses first, 3 plus 7 equals 10. And then we know that 4 times 10 is 40. And 12 plus 28 is also 40, so we've gone from a statement, we haven't changed it. We've changed the way it looks, but it's just the same statement really. 12 plus 28 can be thought of as the same as 4 times 3 plus 7 or 4 times 10. Because, again, 12 really is 3 groups of 4. 28 really is 7 groups of 4. So that is total 10 groups of 4. Quickly, let's work through another example. We have 2 plus 10. Now, the greatest common factor of 2 and 10 is just 2. So we can think of this as 2 times 1. This is 1 group of 2. And then this is 5 groups of 2. So we'll do 2 times 5. Now, if we've got 1 group of 2, and 5 groups of 2, then that's the same as saying 1 plus 5 groups of 2, or really just 6 groups of 2. And we know that that's true because here we had 2 plus 10, that's 12, and here we have 2 times 6, that's also 12. Now, if you're like me, you might be thinking right now, this is really weird. Why are we doing this? I already know how to do easy addition problems. why are we adding all this weird distributive property stuff? You're absolutely right. Right now, it is really weird because we do know how to do these addition problems. But later, when we start adding variables and we start doing algebra, you'll be doing the distributive property all the way through high school. It's a really important property. So we wanted to introduce it first with regular numbers so you could see that it was true, get a little practice with it. And then later, when we start doing algebra, you'll see it again. So I know it feels weird right now. We're just kind of practicing for later. Do the Google form, do your best, and we'll see you in class tomorrow. And if you're feeling confused, that's okay. I think once you see a lot more examples in class, it will start to make a lot more sense. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.